Testing, testing. If I could ask people to take a chair and have the speakers list. Thank you. Good morning and welcome to the Community Hall meeting of the Town of Qualicum Beach. I start by saying we're holding this meeting on the traditional territory of Coast Salish people, in particular the Qualicum First Nation. Welcome. This is what used to be an open house, and now we've combined to Community Hall meeting. For those of you who don't know, can now see some visitors, that so that everybody can hear the questions and the answers at the same time. So it creates for greater efficiency, plus there's a record of the points that were raised and questions that were asked. So I know we have a speakers list, and the first one is Mr. Peter Drummond. And I would ask you to come to the microphone, and to start with, you have up to 3 minutes. Thank you.
Merry Christmas to all. Anyhow, Peter Drummond, 800 Canyon Crescent. I just want to address the council in regards to the pickleball situation. I want to remind the council that 3 years ago, minus 96 days, we were standing here with a proposal to build a pickleball court or a facility here in town to address the need. At that time, there was a unanimous agreement to provide $85,000 towards the facility and a site. But I did want to remind you that almost 3 years later, here we are, and we still do not have a site. I hope this is not an exercise in paralysis, because we have tried very hard to put our best efforts forward. Let me clarify a misunderstanding that came about a month and a half ago at the November 12th meeting. I'm speaking about the site at the skateboard park. The site is not level. In fact, it falls off about 5 to 6 feet on the northeast side of the site that was provided for us. This means a retaining wall on probably both ends, which would increase the price of the construction. The second issue is about the construction of the skateboard park, which I'm very happy to see there. They've done a wonderful job, except they've constrained our footprint. We can now not get the 128 feet of the pickleball site in that location, unless we do some fancy diddling, like moving the road around on the south side. So I also want to emphasize the fact that this cost of the skateboard, or the pickleball site, would be probably in the order of $350,000 to $400,000. If we move down to the third tennis court by the Legion, that site would probably cost us about $100,000 or less. And I cannot provide council with a more precise figure, because I've been asked not to provide you with one.
You would wrap it up, Peter. When that red light flashes, your time is up.
Okay.
But you're welcome to speak again.
Can I have one more piece?
Well, no, you can come back after and speak again, but let other people who haven't spoken yet first.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyhow, my message is this: is that I think it's clear that the council has to do this in some way.
Mr. Drummond, we will, but your time is up.
Thank you.
You need to take a seat, and we'll follow up later.
Thank you, council.
Thank you. The next is, let's see, Darla Filani. Just a reminder for people who come to the microphone, when that red light starts flashing, your 3 minutes are up, but after everybody else has spoken for the first time, you'll be invited back.
I should have given him my time. Mine's going to be pretty quick. I've written it down so I don't go off course here. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. I'm Darla Ferlani, and I reside at 217 Higson Crescent. Today, I want to talk to you about the impact of light pollution or light trespass, which is a growing problem caused by technology changes to exterior lighting. New LED lights are more energy efficient, but they are also many times brighter than standard light bulbs, especially when designed as floodlights. They are cheap to buy, and many are solar powered, so they can be installed on one side or on a side of the house by a homeowner in minutes, requiring nothing more than a stepladder and a screwdriver. But many, when installed, allow bright light to spill onto adjacent properties that can cause a major disruption to the quality of life of neighbors, and they can also impact local wildlife, interfering with migration, feeding, and even reproduction. Many animals rely on the safety of darkness to rest, while others, like bats, are nocturnal. I witnessed firsthand the effect that incorrectly aimed bright floodlights near the waterfront had on nesting shorebirds and aquatic life at high tide. We regulate noise, air quality, and tree cutting, and controlling nuisance light is just as important to maintaining our neighborhood character, the environment, and protecting the health and quality of life of our residents. The Local Government Act gives you the power to regulate light trespass, and that's why cities across BC are introducing light intrusion bylaws or amending existing good neighbor, untidy premises, or nuisance bylaws to address the problem. It can be as simple as adding a sentence that says, "An owner of a property shall not permit or allow an outdoor light fixture to be placed or lit in such a way that it casts light directly onto a window or adjacent property or unreasonably disturbs the peace, rest, or enjoyment of the owner of the neighboring property." I'm here to ask Council to join the growing list of municipalities like New Westminster, Vancouver, West Vancouver, Mission, Township of Langley, Lake Country, and most recently, Campbell River, who have taken steps to maintain the livability of their communities by introducing a light trespass bylaw. Thank you.
Very concise. Councillor Harrison.
Just for Darla's information and your husband, they have a unique circumstance with LED lights. I mentioned this with staff. There's a bit of a miscommunication between what I sent to staff and what staff thought I said. I was thinking we're going to be dealing with it in a future council meeting, and I think we just have to touch base and go over that again. But it is something where some of that language to about LED lights in particular, and the idea was it would be actually through the nuisance bylaw that I had, at least, and we'll see what council says and staff say, but through the nuisance bylaw, and LED lights basically have to end with your property with shielding. And
Yes.
Specific to LED lights, just because the old incandescents, the light can spill very easily, and it's sort of what we're all used to, but the LEDs are an order of magnitude different.
Right.
And last time I drove by your area at night, I didn't see the lights on, but I know in the past they've been very obnoxious, so sorry it hasn't been dealt with already.
Yeah, oh, well, that's great. Well, I had nothing better to do this morning, so I thought, well, I'm going to come to my first town meeting here, so that's great that it's on your radar at least.
Thank you. When you get nothing else to do, you come to a council meeting.
I guess so.
Councillor Skipsey.
Yeah, actually, this matter came up during the replacement of the streetlights with BC Hydro, and we talked about light trespass and the impacts of it. And I believe there is a item on our strategic planning, but I'm not sure when it's slated to come forward.
Okay,
But it is on our radar.
perfect, perfect.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Next is Carol Dow.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. It's good to be with you at this meeting, and I'd just like to ask a quick question. Will these meetings be held monthly? because it was canceled or postponed in November. So will the COW meeting be held every month?
The meetings that replace the open houses?
Yes.
They're quarterly.
I see. But the COW meeting will be held,
No, the COM meetings to replace the open houses are quarterly. Then we have twice a year meetings about the airport as a
Yes.
committee of the whole, and once about our transportation.
okay. Thank you for that clarity. So that I'm understanding this will be 4 times a year, our COW meeting. Right, thank you. Okay, and so and because it's a conversational meeting, is this how I'm understanding? More casual than the council meeting. And the question I have is that I had brought forward at the airport meeting that could it be held 4 times a year rather than twice a year? Was any discussion around that? Because I didn't hear back.
No, there was no discussion about that. We had said twice a year. That was a council decision.
Does the rest of the council feel that way too, that it should only be twice a year?
That was a council decision.
And you made that decision after the airport meeting?
The council decision means a majority of council. Might have been
Okay.
unanimous, but the
Okay.
council decided to
And then
do it
the
twice
last
a year.
question around the airport, before I go into the caregivers, is that it was brought up at the airport meeting that the Transport Canada, Town of Qualicum Council, and reps from Qualicum Woods, it was recommended by Transport Canada to be able to have a meeting together. Was there discussion around that?
There has not been a council discussion about that.
There has or has
There
not?
has not been a council discussion about that.
Okay, so that's something that's forward?
It
Yeah.
could come forward. yeah.
Oh, okay, thank you. And so I'd like to really bring forward a very important concern for our entire community. This notice will be posted. The BC Seniors Advocate will be here January 12th at 2 p.m. at the Gardens because so many people were unable to attend. And in this announcement, I'm saying we invite you to bring a letter of your caregiver story if you wish, and there will be a Q&A following, or just come and listen in. Our plan is to advocate for more nursing home beds, so badly needed, as well as respite care for our caregivers caring for their loved ones. We are saving the government billions of dollars as caregivers, taking care of our loved ones in our homes. We are the most senior population in all of Canada. Come and be part of the advocacy for this much-needed help in our area and learn what Mr. Levitt can do to help us. And here's the petition that will be all around the District 69 from Qualicum Bay to Nanoose, Parksville, Qualicum, Arrington, and Coombs, and addressed to you, as well as to Qualicum Beach Mayor Council, Parksville Mayor Council, BC Seniors Advocate, Island Health Board, MLA Stephanie Higginson, Minister of Health Josie Osborne. We urgently ask you to provide and care for our burned-out caregivers here in Oceanside, District 69, Qualicum Bay, Qualicum, Parksville, Nanoose, Arrington, Coombs. Desperately needing
Ms. Dow, Ms. Carol, your time is up when that light starts flashing. I'll have to stay fair to everybody, but 3 minutes are up. Absolutely. Thank you.
I thought it was more of a conversation.
No, I'm asking everybody to stick to the first 3 minutes.
Yes,
Thank you. And next is John Wood.
I was going to start by saying, as they say in Monty Python, and now for something entirely different, Merry Christmas to you, and the whole council and staff. That's all the words I know. I've got a number of topics, and the first one I'd like to talk about is, for over a decade, Eagle Crest residents have been told the traffic lights on Highway 19A are discouraged by the Ministry of Transport, or whatever the right terminology is for that group. Recently, new traffic lights were installed on Highway 19A at Columbia Drive / Sunrise Drive in French Creek. Given that the very much lower cost of traffic lights compared to a roundabout, how soon will Town of Qualicum Beach approach the Ministry of Transport for approval to install lights at Highway 19A and the Village Way Country Club Drive intersection?
Thank you. Oliver or Mr. Watson, any comment, or Ms. Svensson, or Ms. Varela? Anybody want to speak to this? Because this has been a conversation that's been happening quietly, where we know a roundabout's going to be multi-million dollars. And I saw what they did at Sunrise, and I think they did a good job. And I looked at the way it was laid out. It could work at Village Way and Island Highway too. So is that a consideration, and how would we approach that? Ms. Varela?
Thank you, Your Worship. So what we've been saying is we'll be looking at a traffic solution. So the idea of a roundabout or lights has not been predetermined. So we'll be asking council for direction with that as we move forward. So right now, we've termed it a traffic solution, leaving the door open for that discussion. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. It's interesting, half of my time disappeared with staff answering the question. I'll have one more here. During development of the Fern and Cedar site and the subsequent East Village residence buildings, the town promised to provide additional parking stalls behind the brewery building. This has apparently not happened. Why has it not happened?
Sound like a planning question? Mr. Seals?
Yes, thank you. So the long-term planning for that area is underway. We are doing a needs assessment for the operations facility modernization. So that may involve a reconsideration of that area, but it's too soon to say. In terms of the decision that was made in the past, there was never a formal commitment to provide additional parking in the area. However, we do recognize that parking will be constrained, especially as that area continues to build out and the commercial occupancies fill in. So we're certainly aware of the issue, and we'll be looking at solutions, but it's not something that's been determined at this time.
Thank you. As General MacArthur said, I will return.
Sorry, also to the previous term, the reason we were talking about parking at what's currently our Public Works yard is that because it's been a Public Works yard for such a long time, if you were to move the Public Works yard, which is a hypothetical, and as Mr. Sales mentioned, we haven't made any final decisions on that, but that was the original plan, was to relocate the Public Works yard. To redevelop the site, you might have to do some soil remediation, but if you create parking, you don't. So it was basically something where we're providing something that's a benefit, like we provide parking in other areas in town. That would have been probably the easiest way to use that land, which used to be, is basically it's a brownfield site.
Let's see. Marie, no. Is it you? I think I was first. Oh, yes, you are. But, you know, my old practice of ladies first. But go ahead, Jim.
Okay, I didn't realize 3 minutes was so short. Anyways, I've got a couple of things to talk about. I'll start with the first one. I'll come back later.
Sure.
So we've purchased the Eagle Crest Golf Course. And I'm wondering now if there's going to be an account of all of the expenses and the costs so that we know going, pardon me, so that we know going into it what the total cost of the purchase was to date. Will that be released to the public?
Ms. Varela, I think we have a record of how much we spent.
And when I'm talking about total cost, I'm talking about not just the purchase price, we're talking about all the consultants that were involved, the conveyancing fees, the lawyers, the due diligence, the environmental assessments, the whole works from day one to day. Will that be released to us?
You know, I don't know if we have the total number right now, but this council is committed, and so is staff, to be transparent, and we will have a total tally.
And we will know that going into the new budget.
There's no way for us to keep that a secret. Thank you.
Thank you. And after that, will there be an accounting given as to where the various monies came from and how they're being repaid over the course of time?
Yes. As you know, we have an exceptional financial administrator who keeps close tally on all that kind of thing.
Okay, thank you. I'll come back with some other
Sure.
things.
And your better half can come up now.
That's a matter of opinion.
Everything's shared. How's that? Good morning. I wanted to talk today specifically about Qualicum Commons. To date, we've had a press release back in September of '24 announcing the collaboration between the school board and the town. In June of this year, we had a confirmation press release that a lease was signed. The next thing that I've seen publicly is that there's a staff report dated October 22nd, and this is the one where they outline all of the movement of monies to deal with Eagle Crest. And in that adoption of amending the financial plan, there's a one-liner that says $590,000 allocation from the community amenity contribution received from 850 Eagle Crest, and that it says per the direction of the March 12, 25 in-camera meeting. There was no formal release of that information. It just came out as this little one-liner inside the report to council. To date, the acquisition has primarily been done behind closed doors. And using section E and K, one is about the acquisition of land and the other one is about negotiations of municipal service. I'm asking today how we are able to use that behind closed doors to make a decision to use $590,000 from the Community Amenity Fund. That's not something that should be done behind closed doors. In my view, that should be something done here in open meeting. So how is it that we can use funds for maintenance of a building when these funds were allocated on June 8th, 22 in a regular council meeting, that the money would be used 50% for parkland and environmental conservation and 50% for healthcare, local healthcare. This was carried in a full open meeting. So my question today is, when will we return to full transparency so the public are informed about the costs related to this transaction, and specifically the repairs and maintenance and the business case for ongoing operations at the Commons? I'm assuming that there's going to be expenses like that affect the Parks Department, corporate services to admin the leases. So that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the town to release their business case.
Mr. Sales, you were very good at negotiating a one-year lease. Any information you can share?
Yes, thank you. So without the benefit of our Director of Finance, I don't want to speak in detail about, in terms of the allocation of funding. So I would say we would like to follow up on that one. What I would offer to the public generally is that the building is fully occupied. And so, we now have a much clearer picture about potential revenues on the site. And so I think a more fulsome reporting would be appropriate in the near future.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I think both council and the public should remember that the first year is really about doing our due diligence to understand the business case around the Commons. So that answer is still to be determined as we work through the first year. With regards to the community amenity contributions, again, those can be applied to a broad range of municipal purposes, subject to council direction and town policies. Again, that will be reported out, and as council has said publicly, the reserves, while borrowed from, will be repaid. So again, very transparent reporting. It's just the timing, and that will be coming up. So again, we have a financial plan we'll be working on, and council will be approving in April this year.
Okay. Your own policy, which is the like that? Better? Okay. The CAC policy that's in place, number 3008-11, it says clearly in it that there should be a clear link between the proposed amenity and the probable impacts of a rezoning. So this is money that was put up because we're allowing more density down in the Eagle Crest area, the estate lands, and I'm having a real hard time seeing how this links to doing repairs on an old building at the Commons.
I don't think it's been decided that we would use that money for repairs. The money that we went to Parks and Recreation obviously went to the skateboard park to help pay for the skateboard park. This money was temporarily parked because it was really meant for what we thought at the time for healthcare services, but there wasn't anything for us to put money into, and there was an urgent need to have capital to complete the deal with Eagle Crest Golf Course. But as we have said publicly many times, apart from buying the golf course, we need another $2.5 million to fix everything up that had been neglected. But that will come out of the sales of lands that we have decided we will sell. We've rezoned portions of it already, and those properties will sell to make up for all the reserves that we drained to buy the golf course.
Okay, so this has nothing to do with the Eagle Crest purchase. This has to do with the Qualicum Commons and allocating $590,000 out of the Community Amenity Fund.
Yes, I think I explained it, but I'll let Ms. Varela have another go at it.
I'm sure it won't be as eloquent as our Director of Finance would be, but again, those by council direction are available as a contingency for that. So if there was a roof failure or something like that. So right now, they're allocated, but they haven't been spent. It's a contingency. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you.
Time's up.
Kevin Monahan. Here you are.
Good morning and Merry Christmas,
Good morning.
Mr. Mayor and Council. Thank you. So I'm here to talk about public engagement. And I'd like to take us back a few years to before the pandemic. At the end of every council meeting, the comments from the gallery, people could get up and speak to council. And we were limited to a couple of minutes, and we could comment on things that happened at that council meeting. This took place in public, and the rest of the audience could hear and see what we were talking about. During the pandemic, things changed, obviously, and the council did their very best to come up with good substitutes, and they did. And so at that time, it was written comments then would be sent in, and these written comments would be attached to the minutes of the meeting. As we've come forward, we now are meeting again in face-to-face, but people cannot speak to the council after the end of every meeting. Instead, we have to submit comments as we did during the pandemic. So we've lost the ability to speak in public and have other people hear what we have to say, that sort of thing. Now, not only are the minutes do not carry the comments that were sent in, all you get is a summary. So, for instance, today's summary, if what I was saying now was at the end of a council meeting, Kevin Monahan spoke on public engagement, period. So nobody really gets to see or hear what it is that I or any other person has to say to council about the subjects that happened at that meeting. And I feel that we've lost a significant opportunity to speak to council and to be heard speaking to council. Not only that, but according to the agenda, comments at the end of a meeting are supposed to be posted on the website. For the life of me, I've not been able to find them on the website. So we've lost a significant amount of public interaction with council. I commend council for this kind of meeting where we get to have a back and forth, but oftentimes these meetings are so far separated from the council meetings where things occurred that it really doesn't make a lot of difference. So I am here to appeal to council to bring back the ability for people to speak to council at the end of every public council meeting so that we can see and be seen. Anyway, thank you very much. I think I've just come in under my 3 minutes.
Yes, you did. And council can make a comment on what you say, what I'm about to say. We've opened up committee to whole meetings on a number of occasions, not just for this type of meeting, but airport, traffic, and any other kind of committee to whole meeting. In the past, committee to whole meetings would have a recommendation to council. That's how it works, as you know. And then council would discuss it at a future council meeting. Now we're asking the public to speak before we make that decision, before we vote on the recommendation to council, which makes it far more efficient. And so saying that you've lost somehow the ability to participate in a council meeting, yes, at the regular council meeting, it wasn't, in our opinion, working the best it could. Often people would come up and make statements that were completely out of line, or it wasn't accurate, and then we'd start another debate and have another council meeting at the end of a council meeting to make sure that whatever that person said was corrected, or whatever else happened wasn't appropriate. So we said, no, if you want to participate, you come to the committee of the whole meeting, and we will give you a chance to participate more directly in the democratic process, rather than after a meeting when we're tired, and we've had a meeting for staff for hours, and I know how people sit there sometimes on those chairs for hours, but they do, we do. And so to start another council meeting, in our opinion, wasn't working. And I've been here where a committee or a council meeting was finished, and then the gallery speaks, and we go like, it's like a whole new meeting, because some might agree with what the speaker said, others disagree, and we'd have another debate. So that wasn't working, and I would not support, personally. Council can say, no, we need to bring that back, but I would not vote in favor of that, just to be clear. Ms. Varela?
Thank you, Your Worship. It's likely also worth noting that the live streams are posted on the website, so people's discussion with council is on the record. And to support that public engagement, we also meet with the residents associations on a quarterly basis. So I attend, support the council liaison, again, trying to support that engagement and ensure we're getting accurate information out to the residents. Thank you, Your Worship.
Yes, I think staff, Ms. Varela in particular, have made herself available to meet with residents associations where a lot of clarification was provided, accurate clarification to these organizations that asked for our presence. Councillor Harrison.
I do want to mostly back up what the mayor said, because he is right. I remember when I first started attending council meetings a rather long time ago, and I was just sitting in the back. Fun fact, the first time I raised a question, people were laughing at me in the audience. The question was, how can we make sure we're getting the maximum return from our reserves in terms of investments so that we grow what we have as much as possible? And some people started laughing at me, fun fact. Anyways, that's not really germane. What is germane is that, to the mayor's point, in the previous term, we wouldn't usually respond at the end of the meeting. And so folks would come up after we've adopted, say, a bylaw or a rezoning. It's done, it's adopted, agree, disagree, it's done. And then they say, well, this is a terrible decision because A, B, C, D, E, and C, D, E are technically not factually true. A and B are totally valid. And then we'd have to, oh gosh, I feel terrible about that, that's horrible. So there's a slight discomfort on council's part, but the worst case scenario was actually during the pandemic, and there was a community that allowed comments before the council meeting, and they watermarked their YouTube streams with the city crest. And then someone came up to the microphone who was, 5G is Bill Gates inciting microchips into your brain, and all the worst of the worst conspiracy theories about vaccines and really, really fringe ideas. And then it got disseminated through social media as, this is a town staff person. It wasn't, it was a citizen. But this is a town staff person saying all the things that we agree with on our fringe ideas. I mean, fair enough, you want to believe what you believe. That's your right as a citizen. But it dragged the town into the city into that conversation. And then they had to delete it, and then it became a whole conversation. And then there was, I think, over 100,000 shares or something like that. It was a hugely viewed video, so it was problematic. Where I do sympathize with your point, though, is that some of our citizens put a lot of work into their comments with a lot of research, and sometimes it's actually very thoughtful. So I do share your concern that if we're just doing like a one-sentence summary and it's very hard to find what you actually wrote, if you've put like a day or two of work into it, forgive me, but I know some citizens probably do, it might be good to have a conversation of how can we make sure there's some way you can access that without having to go through our labyrinth of a website, or it's just very simple and easy to see that if you wanted to tell your neighbors, you should really see what I wrote to council. I thought I made a good point, that someone could actually find that reasonably. So I do think you have a fair point there, that maybe that's something we should look at in the future. But I don't totally agree with having the comments after the meeting, just because, and I know I'm going to feel bad saying this, it wasn't everyone. Most people were fine, but a handful of people did abuse that, and that sort of ruined it for everyone, unfortunately.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council.
Next, we have Gavin McLeod. Kevin? Pardon? Oh, sorry. Sorry, my reading wasn't accurate, but it's McIntosh. Thank you.
Good morning, Council. Merry Christmas as well. Thanks very much for hosting this today. I think it's a really important forum for folks to be able to connect. And so just observing it today and just seeing people or ask their questions is really powerful. Today, I wanted to talk about the 431 College Road project and about maintaining the livability of Qualicum Beach, which I think is an important matter, and just how our process went with respect to the work towards getting towards the first reading. We appreciate all the efforts and the conversations and work with planning and the department, and also with folks from council. We appreciate input. With the 431 College Road project, we have an opportunity to provide both respite care for seniors as well as long-term care for seniors, as well as funded care for seniors in the town of Qualicum Beach. And I want to be clear about that, because the project is not defined at this time. And if you take a site like the Qualicum Manor, for example, which we developed in 2007, it started with no funded beds, and now it has 49 funded beds. So that's the way the system works, is if you build it, they will come, because they will need you. And so our hope for Qualicum has always been to build funded beds. I wanted to just bring up that I think we feel that we ran a fair process in terms of putting together something that could work for this site, which had previously been zoned to death, basically, to too small a building. And there were comments about the project being massive and not fitting, but I just want to be clear that in this day and age, some things do have to be bigger to work. But we did listen. We started with 4 stories and we took a whole one off. We moved the building away from the bank, and we moved it also away from the neighboring property, which was us responding to what we'd heard. We also proposed a plan for parking, and which was to meet the needs of the residents, and we also proposed a plan for deliveries. These are things that were responses, and I think that we could have, and I think it's important, and I think we deserved first reading, because that was the beginning of a conversation to help seniors in this town, and we were not given that. And I think that's an injustice to the people of Qualicum Beach, because there are a lot of people that need help. Carol's caregivers are an example of that with respite. And so I just want to say that we appreciate the work of planning and council's consideration, and we think that this is still a good spot for seniors' care, and we hope for the seniors of Qualicum Beach that there isn't just one solution. We think it's going to take many different sites to do that.
Thank you. Ms. Varela?
Thank you, Worship. So just for the benefit of council and the public, there is not currently an active application for this project. So I just want to clarify that with regards to the speaker's notes. Thank you.
And that just means we can talk about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So your time is up, so you have to come back the second time.
Yep.
Thank you. Councilor Harris.
Sorry, apropos of nothing, there was, in the previous council term in the city of Surrey, there was relatively famous in the Affordable Housing Circle project that was done for people with disabilities. It was basically like Inclusion Parksville. They had a purpose-built, it was going to be a community housing fund project, I believe. So it was a provincially funded and federally funded affordable housing building. There were 2 petitions. One had a small number of signatures, one had a much larger number of signatures. It came to Surrey Council, and it was rejected on first reading. And then Brenda Locke became the new mayor in a very close Surrey election, and I think it was approved within the first year of the next council's term.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Jacobson, Pat, you're up.
I'm assuming this is allowed. I'm speaking on behalf of Lois Eaton. Lois is ill today and unable to come, so she's asked me to speak on her behalf. So greetings of the season to each of you on our council. You have courage to be leaders at this time of great peril in our society. International wars, climate change, chemical toxin proliferation, plastics throughout everyone's bodies, economic challenges to individuals and our country as a whole. These all combine to impact not just citizens' emotions, but all areas of our health. In the midst of these perils, there are individual countries, areas within countries, municipalities, corporations, businesses, and citizens leading through their actions to concrete and powerful ways forward. What more can one small town on the east coast of Vancouver Island do to join those in making a difference? Trees. Plant more and protect those we have. Recent data from China is showing the world that it can be done. Their CO2 emissions have plateaued, and their massive planting of trees over the last 2 decades has positively altered the water cycle and halted encroaching desertification. In Qualicum Beach, we are in the enviable position of having trees, and we can ensure a tree is planted on public and private land for every tree that is cut for whatever reason. The science is in, and we cannot say, well, it will really make a difference. The answer is a resounding yes. Trees filter the air, absorb CO2, cool the area around them by delivering shade and water evaporation, and slow the rate of water runoffs. Qualicum Beach has experienced atmospheric rivers, heat domes, and smoke from summer fires. Trees ameliorate all of that. They are an infrastructure that keeps on giving. We cannot afford to delay the revision of our tree protection bylaw until 2027. I recently had the privilege of attending the Biosphere Awareness Day at Qualicum Secondary. The respect and engagement of the students was a delight, and their written statements about what trees mean to them showed they understand the role trees play in our world. They said trees mean life, trees are our breath, and trees are selfless as they just keep on giving. We underestimate the understanding of young people in the raucous society of life on social media. Outlandish outlier behavior is how we have begun to gauge the norm. I discovered at Qualicum that quiet, deep understanding of issues is the more prevalent norm. Let's provide the leadership these students deserve to protect their world by protecting and proliferating Qualicum Beach trees. The speed of global and local change requires we respond equally quickly. We need to continue to work on our tree protection bylaw. Climate's abundance is the way forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Harrison.
I just want to commend the mayor for this. Has been the 3rd time someone said Qualicum, not Qualicum Beach, and you haven't interrupted them. So I just want to say thank you for that.
Well, it's the time of year for Christmas, more generous, but I will ask people, if you talk in this chamber about the town of Qualicum Beach, then please call it that. Qualicum is the name of the school district. So I think it's rather disrespectful to come into this chamber and call it Qualicum. So please, and I know I've had criticism for saying, you shouldn't interrupt people saying that. Well, we don't say Columbia, we say British Columbia. Powell River, Campbell River, it's Qualicum Beach. It's one of those little things that I think just shows a little more respect for the town that we live in, which we all love.
Well, point taken, but we left out 3 beaches, enabled us to keep this on time.
Okay, and that's even more of a challenge. That's touche, Pat, but I try to keep people on the limit, and I think they would see that red light, but maybe it doesn't show as good as I thought, as well as I thought. Anyway, I've mentioned to people that we can all speak for the first time before I ask people for the second time. Is someone here who'd like to speak for the first time? Tim, come on up.
Good morning. Tim Pritchard speaking. Just a couple of things to start off. First, I'd like to commend Public Works on all the decorations that we see on the street and also the cleanup that's been done after all the wind and everything. I think they've really been doing a good job there, so thank you for that. In regard to Public Works, we also, another thing council commended on is finally doing something on Memorial at First Avenue with the flashing the RRFB beacon. That's a good start on addressing things on Memorial Avenue. There's still a lot more to do. But in this context, I'd like to suggest that Council be proactive in addressing the 9 additional RRFBs that are listed in the transportation plan as priorities at suborder. These are really not that expensive in the total scheme of things, but they are an important contribution to public safety. So have a good look at that. The other item I'd like to address here is, and you probably all saw it, is the Mayor of Parksville announcement that they are giving consideration to changing the name of Highway 19A through Parksville to Oceanside Boulevard. And as part of that, they say moving it away from being designated as a highway in the public image just by the use of the word, it makes it more like a residential street, and that they think that that would contribute to controlling speeds that are a problem everywhere. In that line of thinking, the Qualicum Beach might want to give consideration to changing the name along our Highway 19A to Oceanside Boulevard. It would be good, just the continuity the whole way would be Oceanside Boulevard. We've worried about the traffic control problems along 19A and the waterfront. Maybe this could be a small component of addressing all of that. Thank you.
Thank you. And the design that Mr. Watson has presented it to council would actually fit the name Boulevard more than Highway. So I think we're in the right direction, but we're trying to do the real tangible things so people know they have to slow down because of the design of the road. But it's a good thought to say, let's change the name, and people's mindset might change for the speed as well. Ms. Rilla? Oh, okay. All right, so who hasn't spoken for the first time? Yes, sir, come on up.
Morning, councillors. Merry Christmas. My name is Peter Wallace. I live on College Road. I wasn't intending to speak today, but I'm seeing a pattern emerging around the College Road proposal that looks to me like making the same mistake over and over again. So having attended 2 meetings at the Gardens, we had at one meeting the Montagues, at another meeting the Capulets, essentially the people who were pro-care home development almost at any cost, and people who were pro-community maintenance without necessarily understanding the full spectrum of all the issues. And I think that was reflected in the vote that the council had around that project. That 3 people said this is an unredeemable presentation, an unredeemable plan, which is possibly accurate, and 2 people said we need to discuss more. So my suggestion would be, it appears we'll have another opportunity to look at this subject again. Let's figure out how to do it better. And to do it better will be to get the province and Island Health and community, people who are present in the community or understand the community, together with the developers and financiers as part of planned development. I don't know exactly how to make that happen because the council protocol really tees up that type of work. But if that doesn't happen, we'll be looking at the same project in 2 years' time with the Montagues and the Capulets arguing and producing who's got the biggest.
Sorry, what are you saying, Montagues?
Sorry, so it's a reference from Romeo and Juliet, two separate.
Okay, that's a long time ago. Make it more modern.
Okay. Well, there are 2 groups that are talking past each other. So I apologize for a little Shakespearean entry. It's Christmas time. We can be a little bit lyrical. So anyway, so how do we get these 2 groups mediated and talking to each other so that we can actually do something that's good for the town?
Thank you. I still don't approve of categorizing people. I know you categorize capitalist. I know some of the people who are in favor. I wouldn't consider them capitalists. So let's refrain from giving people certain categories.
No, it wasn't. It was Capulets was a family. So there were two groups. And I thought that was a reference that people would understand. Two groups of people who are on a different page in terms of.
And what did you call them?
Capulets. The family name.
Okay, sorry. I misunderstood. I stand to be corrected. Pardon me. Thank you.
So I apologize for the confusing reference. I thought that would be understood coming from a somewhat literary background. I apologize.
It might have just
for
been me that didn't get that. Thank you. Councillor Harrison.
Oh, just to point out too, and I do appreciate the Shakespeare reference, having a literature degree in my background, but I would say if you wanted to get VIHA involved from day one, they'll probably just say, we're building a big building in Landsville, and I forget the exact number of beds. Is it 290 or 300-ish? But around 300-ish units, and this will take care of the needs for Oceanside and Nanaimo and Mission Accomplished banner, and here we go, we're doing great things. Obviously, it's not sufficient for the long-term needs, probably for our whole area. We probably need something in our area. But this is the only caution I'd have about getting VIHA involved. I don't mind the idea of maybe we sit down with the proponent and we say, okay, maybe we can do something where there's a land swap, maybe we can do something where there's some creative ways to approach what they're looking at. But I just caution against the VIHA lens, because I remember in my time when I was the liaison for the Perfect Storm group, all the family doctors, so Dr. Mark Morris was showing up at a lot of meetings back then, everyone who was involved in healthcare is like, just don't involve VIHA, because it's just endless process as soon as you get VIHA involved. It takes forever to get anywhere. But I do share your idea, maybe there's something creative we can do with the proponents. So I do hear what you're saying on that, but yes, I appreciate a good Shakespeare reference. Tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow, but maybe not today.
But maybe, the 40% of people in our community who need public access to public facilities and who aren't dealt with by private housing, they need some representation in the process.
Councillor Vandervelde.
Thank you. I think it is a very good suggestion to try and involve all the groups. I don't know exactly how we would facilitate that, but there definitely is a lot of different points of view and different considerations that need to come into play. It's not a black and white situation, and we do need to look at all of the different groups that are involved. So I don't know if there's a way that we could facilitate that. I think it's a definite idea. I think also it would be good to be more clear on exactly who that housing would facilitate, people that are residents of Qualicum Beach specifically. I don't know that that can be decided beforehand, so perhaps Qualicum Beach is taking the impact of a project like that, but not necessarily that its residents are the people that are going to benefit from it. So I think there is a lot in play, and if there was a way that we could facilitate looking at more of the big picture, because it is being, as Mr. Wallace said, it's sort of one group against the other, and hopefully we could come up with a solution that is beneficial to everyone. I do worry about, I think right now, if people need long-term care and there's no facility locally, then they do go to other spots. So if that's the case, if someone is in an area that doesn't have long-term care and Qualicum Beach has a big facility, then do they have first preference over residents? I don't know the answer to that, so it would be better to understand that whole process. And the other point is that we have given land to VIHA, that we've tried to point out that there is land available for the provincial government, who they are responsible for healthcare. there is land for them to build a facility in Qualicum Beach. So I think that needs to be recognized as well.
Mr. Sales, as far as process, there's been some suggestions of how we could change that. Any thoughts on it?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Westbrook. So council did decline the application as was presented, which is why CAO Varela noted earlier that there's not an active application, and therefore no one raised their hands to interject to say that it was inappropriate to discuss today. So if they choose to make another application, I would recommend that we explore ways to have this broader community discussion, perhaps in committee of the whole, perhaps in another format, early on, so as not to proceed further down the line and have unrealized expectations or surprises on either one side or the other. So it's ideally discussions could happen earlier if they do choose to make another application. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Young.
I think I appreciate an inclusive discussion with all parties, whether it is VIHA or Island Health as well, even though we know or feel what their opinion may be. It's just to have all parties involved, and we do need to build here in Qualicum Beach. So I know we can't limit it only to Qualicum Beach if we do have the build, but at least we have a build here because our seniors ought to be able to have an opportunity to age in place. And it's also given, let's not worry about who's going to go in, because there is already statistics out there that it's over a year wait to get a care bed, and you know, especially for the demographics in Qualicum Beach, it's only going to get worse for our citizens here. Also, I just want to mention that there was a local person that was waiting for a care bed facility for over a year, and in all the frustration, decided to apply for a maid and ended her life just like a few weeks ago because of the frustration.
Thank you. Councillor Harrison.
It's very hard to follow that. Very sorry to hear about that. But I would just point out, we just spent $8.5 million on a golf course, and we didn't ask if the members are all members, residents of Qualicum Beach. It's sort of a general thing that's for the whole region. So I think for some of these services, we should be using the lens. This is something the region's going to need as well. We're not the only community of seniors. Parksville is, the median age in Parksville from 2001 to 2021 increased almost 13 years. We were the lowest median age increase for our region, but we were the oldest already. So every area is getting older. We increased by about 9 years. Every community, though, was at least 9 years older as the median age in that 20-year span. So Area E, Area F, Area G, Area H, and the city of Parksville and Qualicum Beach as well. So I just, to the point is that I think, unfortunately for some of the residents, it might be a both-and conversation, not just an either-or, because I think we're really behind the 8 ball. But it would be great to sit down with VIHA and see what is the actual wait list, what are the actual times. Sometimes I know, because I used to work in insurance, there'd be folks who'd come in and they'd be talking to my colleagues about selling a unit in some of these long-term care facilities. And sometimes it'd take them forever to sell, and sometimes it would take weeks to sell. So it'd be good to sit down with VIHA, nothing else, to get the data on what's the full wait list, where are we going to be in 2 years when their facility opens, knock on wood, or 3 years. I don't know what the opening date. Sorry, the mayor, with your role, you might know the date for that facility. Yeah, they pushed it back a couple years recently. But that's where I see the lens for VIHA. But if we wanted to have a really wide-ranging conversation, it might be an in-camera meeting if we're discussing about a land swap with the town. But I don't know if that's in the town's interest. I don't know if that's something council's even interested in. And then if we wanted to do something where, I don't know who else we'd be working with, honestly. Not sure who those other groups would be, but just cautioning, like, if we're gonna have a meeting with some people, it might be an in-camera conversation, depending on what the conversation is.
Thank you. And I don't think there's a question that Qualicum Beach supports senior housing facilities. we unlike Lanceville, who's trying to sell a piece of property to build a long-term care facility, Qualicum Beach donated parkland, 9.47 acres for $1. So it wasn't quite a donation, but it was basically a gift for $1. And they built Eagle Park. But there's still over half the property left to mirror that development. So it could easily be doubled, and if they went higher, it could be more than that. So the town gave that land. And to say, we need housing for seniors. We need care facilities. So here's our part. We will give that. We don't ask for it in dollars, just build it. And they haven't. So there's no question that Qualicum Beach, over the years, has been a clear supporter of seeing more senior-type housing built. That's why we supported Berwick. That's why we supported the Gardens, 225 units. When that first came up, people told me, if that gets built, you'll never get reelected. I said, well, I want to build. And it was with different people than the current owners, and the same as the Qualicum Manor. So we have been supportive of that type of development. But the reason why I understand the neighborhood was not too excited about this project, because it was overwhelming both the building that's already there, I think it's called Chatham, and then the homes in the neighborhood across the street or below. They felt like this is going to overwhelm this property. It was zoned for condominiums with beautiful location and view. So when the new owners came in and said, we want to build 140 and then later 120 units, we said, well, I don't think this is kind of the right location for it. It's not that we don't want it, and not that we don't understand we need this, but it also has to fit the neighborhood. And I would ask anyone, if you go by there, and imagine you're living in a single detached, single-story home, and somebody's going to build that building next to you in your street. So put yourself in the position of the people who are in that neighborhood. And it's not people being accused of NIMBYs. Well, it was zoned for something different. So to zone it for something different and then expect something that's like this, huge difference from what was zoned for, I can understand people being a little bit upset about it. And that's what I'm going to say about that. Anybody else would like to speak that hasn't spoken yet?
I'd like to speak again.
Well, if everybody hasn't spoken for the first time, I'll go back to the speakers list, and I think Peter Drummond, you were up. You can go ahead for your second time. Yeah, well, Pat spoke already.
That was for Lois.
Oh, I didn't know. Okay, we'll call you after Peter.
Okay.
Yeah.
This will be quick, but thank you for the second opportunity here to finish what I was trying to say before. I just wanted to bring to your attention the time-sensitive nature of our grants that we've been successful for. I'll just itemize them. We applied and got a $2,500 from, this is about pickleball, of course, okay, from the RDN. But there's a time-sensitive nature to that because they've asked for progress on our pickleball facility, and I've explained to them, and so we have an extension on that, but we'll lose that $2,500 by the summer if we don't have any progress. The Rotary Club has promised us $5,000 towards the project, and they're in the same situation. I am in contact with them, and they will pull that if we're probably not going to show any advancement in late spring. And there's the Raymond James Foundation of $50,000 plus the tax-free portal, which has been pulled right now temporarily. And that is certainly jeopardized if we don't get a green light on the project. So the message here is clear. We need council to make a decision and to make the correct one. I just want to finish by saying that we have the numbers. I've figured out that if the Qualicum Beach per capita has 6.7 times higher number of registered pickleball players than other communities in the province. And I think that's impressive because pickleball is growing exponentially, as everyone knows. Thank you, Kate.
Thank you. Ms. Varela?
Thank you, Your Worship. So just a note for council and the public that council is being asked for early budget approval for the pickleball budget later today at the 1 o'clock meeting. So there is a staff comment that will be seeking council direction on the final location in January with an eye to the time sensitivity of all those grants that were just mentioned. So if we can get that final direction in January, we should be in good shape.
Councillor Young.
I'd like to ask Mr. Drummond a question. Maybe you won't even know, but given the number of people that are interested in pickleball or do pickleball play it in Qualicum Beach, how much would you know that they have contributed towards this fundraising? Is there an average of the players in Qualicum Beach that have contributed money?
We have suspended our fundraising things because of the nature of this project. The answer is $11,000 at this point.
And these are all pickleball players?
Yep.
11,000?
Yes.
And so how many pickleball players do we have?
264.
264, okay.
Registered in Qualicum Beach. Yep.
And they're not all pickleball players because, well, not yet anyway. I've made a contribution because I believe it should happen. But as Ms. Varela said, we need council decision making, and some of it will happen later today, and some will happen in January. And we are aware of the time constraints fit these donations and grants from different organizations and people. Thank you. Councillor Skipsey.
Thank you. I just had a question because this is going to be coming up this afternoon. And we had a letter from the tennis people asking us to hold off until the multi-purpose court at KSS is built, which is to include a tennis court. So my question is, does it have to be 4 courts, or is there a possibility of perhaps extending the current and building 2 courts for now, and then when the other facility is built, add the 2 additional courts?
I thought this question would have been brought up earlier, but the thing is that we've determined some time ago, like 3 years ago, that a club is the minimal number of courts for a club would be 4. If you have less than 4, you don't have the vibrancy, you don't have the, I don't know, the camaraderie that would be brought forward with, more than or 4 or more courts. But anyhow, 2 and 2 probably wouldn't work.
Something just came to me, and just through the chair to Mr. Sales, probably. I'm not totally familiar with the forested area behind the courts currently. Would it be possible to do a both and at that location and not just an either or? Like, could we put, like, say, 4 courts behind the existing 3 in some way? Or is that something where we have to replace that?
Are you talking about the skateboard?
No, not the skateboard part. The Veterans Way. So right now we're talking about Veterans Way. Take out 1 tennis court, put in 4 pickleball courts. And just a question to staff, I don't know if this is viable or not, and forgive me for being ignorant on this. I'm not totally up on how to build a pickleball court, personally. But if we put, say, 4 courts behind the 3, it'd probably be more money. I understand that. But would it be something where we could get both users at the same site?
That's kind of a complicated question. So we are planning for 4 courts, and we'll hear more this afternoon and in January. Mr. Sales?
Thank you, Mayor Westbrook. Through the chair, I'll keep the response brief in that there is a lot of grade as the site drops off to the north. So I think it would be reasonable to expect that the cost of that would be significantly more than what is estimated for the version next to the skate park. So anything's possible with time and money, but it would be significantly more money.
Okay. Councillor Young.
Just in response to Mr. Drummond's, he did say that fundraising was suspended. Is that true, or is there a reason why it's suspended? Because right now, when I averaged it out, if you have 264 players and you have 11,000 donated, it works out to only about $41 per person that plays pickleball. And, gym memberships and all these other organizations charge so much more on a monthly basis than just $41. So I'm just wondering why fundraising is suspended.
Well, if I can be clear about that, within the group, I mean, we're not asking players to contribute to this now because of the nature of the Dobbs Foundation, which is Raymond James, because they don't have that portal open right now. That wasn't our choice. I have, for one, have offered to go around to the businesses to generate interest in contributing to our facility. But I don't have an agreement now to continue with that. So anyhow, I'm not doing that right now. I don't know if anybody else would join me, but I would be willing to do that. But anyhow, at the present time, we're not fundraising until we get some direction.
And we should have some clarity later today and certainly in January.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I can go down the list, but Ms. Jacobson, you can go speak for yourself now.
Thank you, and good morning again, Mayor, councilors, and staff. This has been a big year for the town in many ways, the most notable being the purchase of the Eagle Crest Golf Course. It was clear that without making this move, Eagle Crest residents would have been living in increasingly unkempt and unsightly conditions and not able to enjoy the assets of the clubhouse, the event space, a restaurant, and a well-maintained golf course. But most importantly, living with an uncertain future hanging over their heads. You wisely took control and are moving quickly but carefully to get it back in shape as a valuable asset in the quality of life for all Qualicum Beach residents. Second point here is on the Mount Arrowsmith Biosphere region. I thought that it was very significant, and the town took a step forward to facilitate and support the biosphere having a physical presence in our town, that little yellow house on 2nd Avenue. I think that's a big deal. The benefits in public awareness and engagement, especially with the Qualicum First Nation, and ongoing engagement opportunities with our local schools. And for those of you who might not be aware, the MABR also coordinates a Mid-Island Stewardship Caucus, which meets the last Friday of every month and includes representatives from local environmental groups. It has accelerated the awareness between groups about ongoing initiatives and resulted in more coordination and participation between groups. And for example, we just had a meeting a couple days ago with our MLA, and we meet with her on a regular basis, 2 or 3 times a year, to share common concerns and opportunities. And lastly, there isn't enough time here to talk about the NN Railway Corridor project, but the town, or the province rather, is expecting a proposal for future use by March of 2026 from the 4 or 5 regional districts and some 14 First Nations along the corridor all the way from Victoria to Courtenay. I hope that the vision of the not-for-profit group, the Friends of Rails to Trails Vancouver Island, is favorably heard. They're advocating for preserving the corridor, but removing the rails and using the existing rail bed for multi-use active transportation between our coastal communities until such time as light passenger rail might be viable, but that is well into the future. I believe this proposal would provide the highest level of social, cultural, and economic opportunities. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. Mr. Sales, you've been the last to meet with Mr. Bevan from the from the Island Corridor Foundation. Any update you can provide?
Yes, and thank you, Mayor Westbrook. The Island Corridor Foundation is at the current time very supportive of trails alongside of the railway tracks, even where the tracks are discontinuous because they haven't been reinstalled. So very strong policy support, and we are looking at a few options to build on that and maybe construct some things next year. So for example, the connection between Memorial Avenue and Beach Road along the railway tracks there is a pedestrian connection. So I think we're in a unique position that there's a lot of alignment between the town's interests and the ICF. So we're going to try to capitalize on that. Thank you.
Can I ask another question?
Sure.
Relative to this? Would the town be equally willing to hear what the Friends of Rails to Trails Vancouver Island would suggest? They're a not-for-profit society. They've been around since 2018.
Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. So the rails to trails permanent conversion away from rail has been successful in some communities, but I would highlight that the ICF is currently not at all supportive of that. So I think it's an issue that we can make hay while the sun shines or wait until there's a total change at ICF. And I think the community benefit would be greater if we build on the partnership that's there. Building alongside the railway, unless there's grade challenges or whatnot, is equally beneficial to the community. Look at the Dolly Mount Trail is a really good example of utilizing the existing partnership, and the two can coexist. Thank you.
I would argue that potentially, and maybe this would have to come from the province, that maybe there is some hybrid of what the Friends of Rails to Trails are doing be incorporated, and there might be a better process for coming up with a more exciting answer. Anyway, thank you for listening.
Councillor Harrison.
In a video on YouTube, which no one watched, I'm sure, in the last election, the Friends of Rails to Trails, actually I did a little interview with them. And to Pat's point about it's going to take a while for passenger rail to be viable, he actually asked, so when do you expect passenger rail to be viable? It's like, when I am the same age as the average age of a resident in Qualicum Beach, perhaps. So yeah, just so you know, like I did actually reach out to them before, and I understand where Mr. Sales is coming from. Perfect is the enemy of the good. And I think the Rails to Trails is the best option. But if we can still get a trail that works, well, okay, that's fine. But I would like, to your point, to see a little bit of a conversation with ICF of, realistically, there's a second First Nation in the Times Colonist just a week ago, I think, which was asking for their land back. I think it was the Esquimalt Nation. It's getting chopped up increasingly. And to your point, Tempest Fugit on things. I know some of the folks with Friends of Rails to Trails were mentioning specifically there was a federal grant which expired this year, which we're not able to access probably moving forward. I just think there's a lot of federal provincial grants. I could be wrong about the federal grant. Gord Johns would be the best contact for that. And if I am wrong, I do apologize. But to your point, there's a limited time for some of these grants. So if we can see some progress, that'd be good. But yes, perfect is the enemy of the good. So we'll see.
I'll do that.
Sorry, Pat. No, you don't have to come down. You want to speak? You have to wait until you come to the All right. Now I can go back down to the list, or just ask who would like to speak again. I see. Go ahead, Carol. You come up first. Go ahead.
Thank you again, Mayor and Council. And I'm representing Fred and Carol Dow from the Oceanside Caregivers. And I'd like to encourage each of you council members and Mayor that some 10 years ago, we had to deal with Island Health. And with the help of our champion, Ron Canlon, Mayor Tunis, and the Storm Group, we were able, with the help of some 6,000 signatures on petitions and heartfelt letters, to get that building built, number one. And number two, we were able to get the 6 palliative beds at the Trillium Lodge, again, where we presented to the Island Health Board and presented 4,000 signatures, and were able to get our palliative beds. So again, I'd like to read to you slowly and carefully our petition. This is going to the Qualicum Beach Council, Parksville Council, the BC Seniors Advocate, Island Health Board, our MLA, and the Minister of Health. We urgently ask you to provide and care for our burned-out caregivers here in the Oceanside District 69, Qualicum Bay, Qualicum Beach, Parksville, Nanoose, Arrington, Coombs area, desperately needing respite care while caring for their loved ones, and the much-needed nursing home beds. We are the most senior population and saving the government billions of dollars. We need your help. And I would just add that from the standpoint of caregivers, personally, I am hearing all the stories. We only have 2 beds, 2 respite beds in a population of a 50,000 catchment population here, and a waiting list of 6 months to a year for our caregivers to be able to get that relief for their loved one to be in that facility for, let's say, 5 days a week or whatever it might be. And so we need your help. I would like to ask for feedback from you while I'm here right now. I remember our coffee meetings being very conversational, and may I ask if there is any feedback and comment?
Councillor Harrison, we'll go down the list.
Sure. I think it was more than 10 years, because I know my mom was very involved with the respite bed, the palliative care bed, rather, conversation. I remember how, forgive me, my mom has at times is a little bit of a battle axe once in a while, and she went to a meeting where VHA said, everything's fine, we've got 1 bed, that's fine for Oceanside, and she basically said she gave a little bit of a tongue lashing to the VHA representative at the time. And that's before I moved to Qualicum Beach, so it'd be over 12 years ago, 13 years ago now. But I do think the broader issue of respite care, it's parallel to this, but when we had the service dogs, Vancouver Island Compassion Dogs used to operate out of the Qualicum Commons. There was an event where one of the veterans talked about how he was so distraught with PTSD from what he saw when he was a peacekeeper. He gave one story for the Balkans, which is the kind of thing keeps you up at night, that his wife couldn't leave the house, physically couldn't leave the house because he might harm himself. And when they were given more support, in this case it was a compassion dog for the service dog team, she was actually able to live a life and go outside, get some shopping done, see her friends, step away. So it is very important. Again, also too, another thing I did is I did living care for folks with disabilities. And a lot of the time I was in a house which was for children, so the moms could drop off their kids who have severe diagnoses. So I saw the difference that it makes for the families, where they can actually just take a breath, get their hair done, have coffee with their friends, as opposed to always being in that hyper-attentive mode where you're providing care for someone, and it is actually a bit stressful. So yeah, I do agree with you that this is needed. I don't know the numbers, but I'm sure the numbers are more than what we have. So I do appreciate you doing the work on this. I think this is very constructive.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. And remember, these people are sleep deprived. They're taking care of their loved one 24 hours around the clock, and that's why they need a break. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gypsy, any comment?
Yeah, I won't go on too long, but I've been in that position, so I understand. We went through it with my father-in-law, my father, my mother-in-law, and now I'm going through it with a senior family friend. So it's not new to me. It's not a surprise to me. And I don't think any of us would argue that these things aren't needed in our community. It's just figuring out how do we make it happen. And I think that conversation needs to continue, so thank you.
Thank you. Well, I feel the same as I'm sure most of the people on council, but I think we are all aware that there is a need, and we're not denying that there is a need. The question is, how do we do it in the context of Qualicum Beach? And that's, I think, where the challenge lies. So we do have to work with all sorts of other bodies of government and within our community. And so that's the question, but I don't think that anyone would deny that there is a need. There definitely is.
I'd like to include that when we're talking about having a more inclusive discussion on the need for care beds, one of the reasons why I had wished for a first reading for the gardens, the College Height proposal was, first reading wasn't to like say, yeah, go ahead and build it. It was having it available to go to the advisory planning committee. And I value the professional opinions of retired architects and planners. And so having them included in hopefully a future discussion on the need for care beds in Qualicum Beach, that would be ideal. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. I think council's role, generally speaking, is to be advocates. We don't have a department for healthcare in the town. That's provincial. And we need to put the pressure where it belongs, and that's with the Ministry of Health. So we are advocates, and as you heard, we are all in favor of it. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that each of you have spoken so avidly, and you understand the great concern as we stand here representing people that are hurting and in a very difficult way. And thank you. I believe that with the help of these groups working together, we can bring about a good result.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Gavin, you had your hand up as well. Come on up. No? Okay, Kevin and then Gavin.
This Kevin.
Yeah. I said actually Gavin, but that's okay. You go now and I'll call Gavin
Two
next.
Kevins right in line with each other.
Yeah.
One Kevin.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. I would like to mention or discuss anyway and I'm not talking about the tree protection bylaw. I'm talking about the town's policies when cutting trees on town property. And my question is simply, does the council believe that the town should follow essentially the same rules that it expects its citizens to follow? So for instance, if the town has to cut 42 trees in a period of 2 months, are those trees tracked in terms of number, and does the town then, if the tree had been on private land and it needed to be replaced by 2 trees, then does the town do the same thing for trees that it cuts on town land? And it is my belief that the town should follow the same rules it expects its citizens to follow. I'm not talking about cutting down dead trees, because the town does not make requirements for people who are cutting down dead trees. So essentially the same rules would apply to the town, but of course it doesn't require an amendment to a bylaw to do that. It's simply a policy decision for the town.
Ms. Varela?
Thank you, Your Worship. So most of the trees that the municipality removes is because of an issue such as disease, hazard, encroachment on an infrastructure, those sort of things. The municipality is exempted from the tree bylaw for those reasons. So unless there was future council decision-making, in that context of understanding why and when the town usually takes down trees, that would be future decision-making. And I will be looking at the metrics the Parks Department has put forward this year to see if those are reflective of what we want council to be aware of, so plantings, things like that. And if that wasn't implemented for the full year, we'll be looking for that in 2026. So I'll be reporting back on that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, I still have a fundamental problem with the idea of a 2-to-1 replacement because you are supposed to see densification in town. But I do think the idea of the town having a 1-to-1 replacement, so say we build the pickleball courts at the community park, which is by no means a set decision, but let's say hypothetically we do that. Some trees will be removed, and they won't be removed because they're old, we're removed because we're putting in infrastructure, an amenity essentially. Well, in that case, there are other locations that the town owns, which would be a place where there will never be something built there. So then, okay, well, let's have a 1-to-1 and track it over time. During this term, we have had a few events where there's been a large amount of trees that have been planted on town property. I'm not sure if we've kept track of those numbers, but there have also, to Mr. Monahan's point, sometimes if there's a certain amenity going in, sometimes even for servicing too, we do have to remove healthy trees. It's rare, but it does happen. So it would be useful for us to sort of have I think at least it should be a 1-to-1 replacement, not 2-to-1, but we should be doing that for trees we replace when there's an amenity being put in. But I see Mr. Sales waving his hand, so.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Westbrook. I just wanted to remind council and the public that when the bylaw was put in place, there was a recognition that people that own large properties, that especially those that were generally forested, had a different set of rules because they've been caring for that land for a long time. So the rule that applies is that they can remove 1 tree per acre per year. So just for context, the town is the largest landowner. So if we're looking for like exact parity between private property requirements in the town, I think the town would be fully within its annual allocation. If it's council's interest to see the town planting more trees, that in some ways is a different discussion in terms of increasing the level of service for tree planting and the amount that the town wants to allocate annually to that. But in terms of actual bylaw compliance, Ms. Varela noted that the town is technically exempt. I would note as a compliment that the town, even if it were not exempt, is actually fully compliant because we own so much land. Thank you.
Councilor Skipsey.
And I was just going to note too, later on our agenda, we have a request to plant trees in Grandin Creek, and I think over the last couple of years, hundreds and hundreds of trees have been planted by KSS and Bolinas students. So maybe we're not tracking that maybe as well as we could or should be, but there's definitely planting going on.
Gavin.
Thank you again very much. I was very glad to hear about the interest in seniors care in Qualicum and about learning more and having a conversation. I think that when we talk, we learn, and it shapes our ability to sort of, I think, make decisions based on the data that we've learned. We had Dan Levitt and Mary Polak come to the gardens and it was in the original intent, it was under the assumption we'd be through first reading and here is let's learn more kind of thing. But it didn't work out that way. It ended up being a very valuable conversation regardless, where Dan expressed his concern with the fact that the province within the next 10 or 15 years needs to build 16,000 plus beds. We did do a study, and that the government, his fear, the government, when they spend, minimum 1 million up to 1.8 million per bed to build, versus the private sector, which spends about we can do it for about 700,000, that the government might just not have enough money to get the job done for all the seniors. And that private pay, which is currently 15% of the industry, might end up being more. And that's a tough pill for a lot of us to swallow. There's been a promise made where healthcare is supposed to be taken care of. But I think it was new learning for a lot of folks. It's something that I'm deeply immersed in. And there are some pressures on the government right now with their deficit. The capital's not there. And so talking about alternatives and how we might put it together is a really good start. Some other pressures that are in place right now is the government's trying to develop a new funding model, and which is taking years to build, which is slowing down the industry's ability to build new beds because they can't effectively put out a request for proposal for new beds because the bureaucracy takes time to figure these things out. Another challenge is that the government has just come out with some language to say that they're going to be imposing the master collective agreement on all funded care homes, which means the cost of providing care in this province is going to go up meaningfully. You might have a benefit load of 1.5%. Now it's going to be 1.8%. 8% or whatever the master collective might do. For good, for better or worse, it's expensive. And that is also slowing down the new construction because private operators don't know how this is going to impact their ability to pay the mortgage on the building that they would otherwise like to build. It would be the same case for College Road. There's a bunch of factors at play, and I appreciate there's a need for conversation with VHA and that. And so it is, again, our experience has been that, again, if you build it, they will realize they need it and they will come. And we've been successful with that a number of times. But we also are very close partners with them. And my feeling right now is we're sitting here on the precipice of something really ugly. And we have what has come before, the gardens and the manor and Eagle Park, and there's that land set aside. But what are the options on the table right now? And that's what we really have to look at. And I think develop. Like, I'm not saying that exactly how we've put it together is the way that it should be, but we have to consider that we have seniors that in Oceanside alone that we're going to be short 852 beds within the next 15 years. If in Qualicum, let's call that many less. But each one of those beds is going to cost $1 million to build. So in Oceanside, if it's built by private operators, it's going to be somewhat maybe around $1 billion. If it's done by the government, it's going to be meaningfully more than that. We're dealing with a lot of money, and we kind of, I think, the hope is that from the conversations, we might be able to understand that it's probably going to come from a bunch of different places, but that if we start having the conversations, i.e., which is my hope, get through first reading, start having those conversations. But as a community, if we can come together, I'm happy to sit down with whomever, and I've got close relationships with VHA, but we have to help the government as well because they have a large burden, and if we help start developing solutions for them because they're busy putting out a lot of fires. If we're developing solutions that can help British Columbians, I think that's a good start, in particular folks from the town of Qualicum Beach. So happy we're here and excited to continue the conversation. Thank you.
Who is next? John, come on up.
John Wood, Qualicum Beach, not Qualicum Bay or Qualicum District 69. Our Fisher Community Plan was just approved last week, I think it was. Sorry, adopted. So I asked a friend of mine, I said, is it correct to say that an official community plan identifies problems but doesn't provide solutions? I've heard that said. And the answer is it's not entirely correct to say that. The OCP is a high-level visionary document, but it is designed to move beyond identifying problems by establishing a framework for their resolution through specific policies, objectives, and land use designations, which is embodied. As an OCP translates community goals into actionable policy. For example, if a community identifies a housing shortage, which is a problem, the OCP does not just state the issue, it provides a solution by mandating housing planning policies that for affordable and rental housing and designating specific areas for increased density. I don't think our OCP does that. It should contain the blueprint for more detailed regulatory tools that solve specific problems. The zoning bylaws are legally implemented through zoning. The development permit areas do what they need to do. But the difference between policy and action is that the OCP sets the long-term direction and the rules of the game, i.e. this area should be for multifamily housing, this area should be for higher density, whatever. And the master plans and strategic plans provide the specific day-to-day actions and timelines to execute those OCP directions. We're missing some of those master plans. There's been, I believe, in all of the meetings, public hearing, et cetera, to do with the Eagle Crest Golf Course, only once, perhaps twice, was there a talk about a master plan for the golf course lands. And there should be, because we bought it It's like, oh my God, we bought it. What are we going to do with it now? We don't have any stated plan for what we expect to happen with these golf course lands. Anyway, that's my comment on the OCP.
Let's talk about that, because it's obviously imminent that something's going to happen with those golf course lands. And as you know, we've identified areas that we could sell off as single lots and some as a larger package. Mr. Sales.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Westbrook. And I'll address this question in a few ways, if that's okay. One is considering the lands that will be used for housing. The other is the lands that are the golf course proper and will continue to operate as the golf course, and then the land that's going to be parkland or reforested parkland that was previously discussed. So the processes are complementary but slightly distinct, so I'll describe them separately. On the parkland planning, we would anticipate that there would be a similar process to what the town went through with Sotlam Park in terms of engaging with the community, coming up with a plan before investing heavily in any reconfiguration or modifications of that park land. So that one is probably a bit down the line in terms of priorities. The golf course itself, in the reconfigured golf course, that planning is already well underway. There's a conceptual plan which is going to be considered for endorsement this afternoon by council. And that one is probably the most time sensitive of those three categories because of the fact that reconfiguration would ideally happen while there's still a good golf season next year. So the intention is to get it operational as soon as possible. With regard to the residential properties, and I'm speaking about the larger properties, not the smaller ones that fit into existing neighborhood fabrics. The town has committed to public engagement on those, and so before finalizing any plans for what that would be, there will be a discussion about how those lands fit into the broader neighborhood in terms of walking paths, connections, transportation, traffic impacts, and then there will be more site-level planning done individually for each of those large parcels. We don't anticipate that would happen for all three of the big parcels next year. There would likely be a phased approach. So we will be coming out with more details on that consultation process and the schedule in the January council meeting. So we want to come out with a public engagement plan in a more complete way, but I hope this overview has been helpful. So there will be consultation next year. We anticipate the public will be engaged starting in February, but more intensively in March. Thank you.
Thank you. That sounded very much like a thumbnail master plan, which is good to hear. I've got a couple of little things I'd like to ask. First of all, there was a recent town tidings published, and I think I counted 3 town hall committee of the whole meetings in that listing, not 4 for next year. Is that correct?
I'd have to double check, but I do believe that's correct due to the election, because there'll be no council meetings starting when we get into election season.
Okay.
That's when we get some real field feedback.
One can only hope. And I'd like to, I've made this comment to other people and I'll make it again. Councillor Van der Valk said that the Eagle Park lands had been given to VHA. Not correct, they were sold. You said that they were given. No, not correct. They were sold. Legal document, legal agreement, sold, not given away. And it puts an entirely different flavor on any discussion you're having if the other people who are not as close to it as some people think that it was actually given away when it was actually legally sold, and we're defensible in being able to say that it was sold.
It was sold for $1. Most people would say that's a gift. Thank you.
I wonder how often bylaws that are older in Qualicum Beach are reviewed. I happened to pick up bylaw, I think it's 225, the traffic bylaw, and in section 20, subsection 3, it says, no person shall park any vehicle, blah, 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 for a period longer than 2 hours on any street, toad, or lane in the town of Qualicum Beach. I'm not aware of if we have any toads that people are in danger of parking on. Let's see. I don't know how, as I said, I don't know how often bylaw reviews, particularly for older bylaws.
Thank you. Through the chair, obviously that is one of the older bylaws. I would note that that bylaw also prohibits the operation of stone boats within the boundaries of the town, which I find very charming. The bylaws come up for review when they need to be. So far, that bylaw, although it's got some anachronisms that are humorous at times, it's not dysfunctional. So it would be prioritized for review at the point that it needs to be. Thank you.
Okay, I think I've got one more, maybe two more here. In 2021, bylaw 761 was passed, a bylaw to establish an emergency program within the town of Qualicum Beach. Is there an emergency program established within Qualicum Beach in accordance with this bylaw?
Yes, thank you. Through the chair, the emergency program bylaw identifies the town operates in a full partnership with the City of Parksville in emergency management Oceanside. So we are continuing that collaboration. Although we do not currently have someone in the emergency program coordinator position, we've been working with our partner, the City of Parksville, to ensure that we're able to continually operate and offer the full service in terms of emergency programming. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. In 2023-2024, there was an update on the communication strategy, or perhaps that was the initiation of the communication strategy. And I wondered if the communication strategy in all its warts and wrinkles has been fully, partially, or not yet adopted. Implemented rather than adopted.
Ms. Miller?
Your Worship, I'll defer to the Director of Corporate Services. Thank you.
Ms. Swenson?
Thank you, Mayor Westbrook. Through you to Mr. Wood. There will be an update in Q1 of the communications strategy from our communications consultant, so we'll be able to give you where we're at. But this year was implementation of the website. We're continuing on with visual identity refresh and also banners for the community. So it's not complete, but we are continuing to tick things off in the strategy.
Thank you. I've got a couple of other little ones here.
Mr. Wood, I think the time is up. So there's other people I would like to speak, and I'll call you back after. Sorry?
There's this one thing about an earlier comment from Mr. Wood, but he sort of went through so many things. I was waiting to not interrupt.
Okay. Go ahead.
Sorry, there's just one thing about the OCP more broadly. The very first thing he said actually was about the OCP. And do we have sufficient zoning? Have we taken into consideration zoning for density? Technically, the province says thou shalt have sufficient zoning for your housing needs assessment by a certain date, which a priori we have because you can build 4 units per lot. Traditionally, the OCP had language in it that the town expected the majority of density to be in the village neighborhood area. Mr. Sales mentioned that once or twice during the OCP update. I can't recall if that's still in the document proper or just a conversation we've had. But to I think Mr. Wood was sort of inferring that we're creating priority housing need groups, and then does the OCP plan for how do we actually create housing for those priority groups? And one thing I just want to point out is that the Build Canada Homes program has a funding portal that went live in mid-November. It's closing in December. We're not submitting anything, as far as I'm aware. We had the Housing Accelerator Fund when Justin Trudeau was Prime Minister. That was federal funds that could be applied. The list of things you could do with that, one of them was infrastructure. So you could literally build infrastructure with housing funding if you just had some housing policy updates, and we didn't apply for that. So I just want to highlight that part of it is that you're going to need funding to create housing for some of those groups, because you just cannot do that through the private sector without the developer losing money on the project. And no developer will build something if they have to lose money, because that's just reality. So I'm not blaming staff on this. This isn't like pointing fingers at anyone, but I do want to point out that there are very narrow windows where funding is available. And generally speaking, certainly at the provincial level, funding is shutting down for affordable housing. They just don't have any money left at this point, and they need to get closer to balancing their budget. Because right now, the second largest ministry for the provincial government is paying your debt. Debt servicing is now past education for the annual amount of money they're spending on it, which is not a good place to be. And I deeply sympathize with the provincial government on that. It's a really hard choice. I don't think anyone enjoys that, but just highlighting that if you want to have housing for those priority groups, you also need to have a cohesive plan for how do we create partnerships with nonprofits, because nonprofits have to deliver the service generally, or a public-private partnership sort of policy. So maybe the private sector could provide some units. And then when there's funding windows, we have to take advantage of that because they're few and far between. I think they're going to get fewer. But that's just, I could be wrong. I'd love to be wrong about that, but I think we're in for some hard times when Carney is saying publicly that the U.S.-Canada trade relationship is over. I think that doesn't bode well for our country. But yeah, just more broadly, I do appreciate Mr. Wood's point that it's great to say, here's the groups you want to help. How do you help them? But I think that maybe is something that's a subsequent document. And I know we do have the housing study coming up in early next year, and we'll see if we build off of that. But I do think there is a need to have a plan that goes beyond just, we've identified this as a problem, to how do we fix the problem?
Thank you. I'm going to ask folks to be concise because we're going to have another meeting at 1 o'clock and we should have a break between now and then. Okay, Jim, come on up.
Jim Noel, Hoylake Road West. I've got a couple of things, but I'll go through one right now and leave it over. The town holds a lot of closed meetings, and I'm wondering if something can be done to actually improve the transparency for the public as to what takes place at those closed meetings. When the agenda comes out, it sets out the requirements of the community charter as to why it's being held in a closed meeting. It doesn't give the subject matter, I understand that. Later on, when there's a disclosure of what took place at that meeting is given, all there is a one line with the motion. It doesn't say what section of the charter was relied upon for closing the meeting, and it gives no information as to background or context to what was actually discussed. I've got two examples of things that were done at a closed meeting. One is, let me just see if I can. This is an example of closed meeting disclosure, that council discontinued providing the cardboard bin service on Berwick Road South, and further that staff work on a communication plan to notify the public on the service change, et cetera, et cetera. It would be nice if you told me what section of the charter you relied upon for that being a closed meeting, because I have a hard time understanding why the cardboard bin service is something that needs to be done in a closed meeting. The second example
Let's ask our co-administrator why that was, Senator.
Thank you. Provision of a municipal service is a qualification under the charter where you can, and cardboard bin is a provision of a municipal service.
But only if it's believed to be of harm to the municipality if the disclosure is known.
Ms. Miller?
Your Worship, I would just caution that it's unfair to debate the acts or the regulations that we're responsible for in public. I think it's fair that the Director of Corporate Services has provided an answer. The debate that follows doesn't seem really fair, if you will. Okay. So thank you.
Fair enough. I accept that. Okay, so the other one that was released was one from the from January or July meeting, that the town proceed with scenario 3 repayment schedule with the Qualicum Beach Memorial Golf Course. That's it. There's no context given, so there's no point in actually even releasing that to me because I'm no further ahead when I find that. So what I'm asking is there some method of actually, when you release the information, provide the section of this charter you're relying upon for the closed meeting, and perhaps provide some context so that I can understand what it was that took place. Thank you.
Any thoughts on that?
I'll leave that for comment now. That would have to be a discussion with council on changing the format of releasing. Right now, under 117 of the Act,
I understand.
I get council direction to release, and they tell me when I can release. So it's either sometimes when appropriate, and so sometimes that's where there's a delay in the release. So without having a conversation with council, I can't comment further.
I understand. I think there's a very good report from the Ombudsman about open and closed meetings and release of information, all that sort of thing that you probably are aware of. Thank you.
Thank you.
And just one thing, I could be wrong, Councillor Skips, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I think the reference to only if it damages the town's interest is only for the one which is about the sale of land. I think for all the other ones, it just says this is a reason why. But I do understand your point that some of those things sound like a budget discussion, but it is a point well taken. But I think the language technically in the community charter is a little bit different.
Yeah, and we do the same at the regional district in Nanaimo, where after, towards the end of an in-camera meeting, we're discussing what we can release. And so then there's a motion made about what we can release from the closed meeting, and that's what staff does. Anyone else in the gallery? I think you've been up advised, Gavin, and you've been up advised, Carol, so I'm going to go with Tim. And I'll ask you again, we got 5 minutes for us to have lunch and have another meeting which will take most of the afternoon. Thank you.
That's the challenge. I know. It's my challenge. Okay, we've had a fairly long session with people speaking, a number of people speaking, but until we've talked through a number of aspects of healthcare. We've had a good talk about pickleball and, of course, trees. But up until Mr. Wood comment, surprisingly, there hadn't been a single comment about the OCP, which has recently been approved. So I'd just like to offer, when I look at that document that was approved, after having attended a lot of meetings in this regard, I find it somewhat disappointing. The focus was to be in this OCP was to be on housing. The final document says very little about housing. A lot of us went to public meetings during May. We had 4 sessions about the who, the where, the what, and the how of housing. And all of this was really the genesis of the formation of the WHAM housing study. So the whole housing issue has been effectively deferred to a separate WHAM housing study. And that housing study would stand underway in parallel with all the work being done on Eagle Crest by the same consultant. And indications are that there won't be a report on that until about April, I think is the latest I heard. And then after that, presumably staff are going to have to assess it all. And then whatever staff thinks and brings forward recommendations is going to have to come to council. And by then, that should at least be probably in late June. Then there's going to be the normal summer break. And come Labor Day, essentially we're going to be in election mode. So one has to wonder what is really going to happen in 2026 on the whole matter of housing. Some could say, well, essentially the whole housing initiative is going to be whatever happens in Eagle Crest. Well, that may be the case, but that doesn't do very much for housing that may be needed in the downtown area. So the OCP says very little definitively about the housing focus. Essentially what you're left with in the OCP document that we see is a summary of a lot of guidelines that say what individuals can do. And then the next section is more or less a rule book of what those same individuals cannot do. Everything has been addressed now. In fact, the WHAM study, I've looked through in a word search. I can't even find, but my computer's broken right now, I can't even find WHAM housing study mentioned in the OCP document. So there's a disconnect here. And the other thing is the OCP study talks about a lot of things that haven't been done. If we were time, I have them listed here. Not been done. Things that have not been updated, much outdated. And it says they'll be done in the next OCP. Well, that next OCP is going to be not only after this council, but it's going to be after the next council's term. So that's in the 2030s sometime. Really seems to be difficult in the whole context of governance. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sales, any clarification? And then I'm going to give you the last word, and I'm going to ask for adjournment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Westbrook. Yeah, so the OCP is a high-level document that essentially advances action through other policies and bylaws. That was stated earlier by a previous speaker, and that is correct. So having said that, yes, the ways to achieve attainable market housing project is one way that the town will be advancing that. I understand that the speaker may be dissatisfied with the speed at which the town would be advancing, housing initiatives, but that is the process. The town has to be very methodical in terms of building a foundation and moving forward towards action, and action is planned and is proceeding on schedule. It's just perhaps not at the speed at which the speaker would like.
Thank you. With that, could I ask for a motion to adjourn? Councillor Skipsey, Councillor Van der Valk, discussion. All in favor? Opposed, carried. Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful Christmas. We are done.
Mr. Mayor, may I say that I